Hello, and I hope you're enjoying the playoffs that are going on right now in the NHL. I know I am. The Leafs are there performing well. I am Hawkeye, and this is Maple Leafs Man Advantage. And in this particular video here, I'm going to talk about the 1974-75 NHL season. There were two new teams added to the league now, so those new teams were the Kansas City Scouts and the Washington Capitals. But there were some changes made as well in the league, and I'm going to go over those as well. Um, Now, the league had tripled its teams from the original six. Now they got 18. They tripled in just only 8 years. That is a big time expansion going on right there. Starting back in 1967, 68, that particular season, they brought six new teams in. We got another six after this many years now, 1974, 75. Um, so, with the addition of these teams, new divisions and conferences were created. And these are the names that I remember when I was growing up as a kid. So, first off, you have the Prince of Wales Conference. This was actually named after Prince Edward. And within that conference, you had the Adams Division, which was named after Charles Francis Adams, who was the founder of the Boston Bruins. Within this division were the Bruins, of course, the Buffalo Sabres, California Golden Seals, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were in the Adams division. There was also the Norris division, named after James E. Norris, who was a longtime owner of the Detroit Red Wings. So, of course, the Red Wings are in that division, along with the Los Angeles Kings, Montreal Canadiens, Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Washington Capitals. Um, it's interesting. LA's with all of these teams that are on the East Coast. That must have not been good for LA. But there weren't a ton of Western Conference teams while saying that, but there were closer teams than that. So the other conference was the Clarence Campbell Conference, and he was the one-time president of the NHL. He currently still is the president for the season of the NHL, but he was president from 1946 all the way till 1977, which is an incredible amount of time to have one president. We've had one in the NHL currently for I never counted, but boy, he's been there 35 years, just off the top of my head. He's maybe not quite that long, but he's been there at least 30, maybe. Long time. Now, within the Campbell Conference was the Patrick Division, named after Lester Patrick, who was a player and coach of the New York Rangers. So the Rangers are certainly in this division. And along with them, you have the Atlanta Flames, New York Islanders, makes sense, and the Philadelphia Flyers also makes sense. Finally, there was the Smythe division named after Conn Smythe, who formed the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, for some reason, Toronto is not in the Smythe. They may end up in there, maybe, or maybe not. It's odd that they never end up in that division, just in the fact that it's named after Conn Smythe, um, who formed the Leafs. But, anyways, they're not in this division, but we have the Chicago Blackhawks, the new Kansas City Scouts, Minnesota North Stars, St. Louis Blues, and the Vancouver Canucks. So, over the years, certainly teams kept changing the divisions and conferences. It finally became more east and more west than just sort of this commingling of everyone. Sort of once we got more western teams, certainly it became easier to do so. And then it wasn't until the 80s, I think like maybe 1982, when the teams were solidified, such as the New Jersey Devils came in, where they stood in the divisions and they stayed there for a good 10 to 12 years until um, they tried. more teams were added, right? So then changes had to be made. So now the playoffs were different as well. Um, as you can see if you've been watching the videos or are already aware, the NHL, it still is a place where a lot of rule changes happen, or we'll try this in the playoffs or try that in, for example, at this time there was no overtime. It was just in the playoffs. So if you end up after 6 minutes with a 3-3 tie, oh, you got a tie. Everybody go home. You got a tie. Everybody gets a point. Where now you go into overtime or a shootout. No more points than are necessary are handed out, I'll tell you. But that's the, things change over the years. Try new things out, try different things, and more or less see what sticks sometimes. But in the playoffs, out of the 18, 12 of the 18, or two-thirds of the teams make the playoffs. It was the top three teams, sorry, in each division. So it wasn't like a 1 through 12. Hey, if you're 12th overall, you make it. No, it's based upon your division. And your division can have 4 or 5 teams in it. If you're in the top three, you're in. And the very top team in each division actually gets a bye to the second round, which in hockey can be good and it also can be bad if you're sitting around a while. But the first round was only the best of three, so it wasn't a best of seven. You just had to win 2 games, and boom, you're off into the next round. So of the 8 teams that would be playing, once you take out the top teams that won the division, you now have 1 through 8. They then do that. So the top team plays the eighth team, the second, the seventh, and on and on and on. And that's how the playoffs work coming up. And I will certainly have a video of going through the 1975 playoffs, hopefully soon. Now, this season would be the final season for the likes of Henri Richard, Eddie Shack, and Norm Allman. This would be his final season in the NHL, excuse me, before he went and actually played one season in the WHA, while a fresh crowd with the likes of Danny Gare, Clark Gillies, Charlie Simmer, and Rick Middleton would make their debuts in this particular season. So I'm not going to look at every single team. I'm going to come close, though. Look at about two-thirds of them. I'm going to look at these new teams that are in the league and the divisions. So we'll start in the Campbell Conference, and we'll look into the Smythe, where the Kansas City Scouts landed for their first season. And we'll take a look, see how things worked out in the season for these teams. So, taking a look on top, it's the Vancouver Canucks. They finally are now in the postseason. Well done. They're finally putting a good game out on the ice here. They had 38 wins and 86 points. Don Lever, sorry, led the team with 38 goals. Andre Boudreau had 62 assists and 78 points. And that they had Gary Smith, who led the league with 72 games played. That's a ton. Once you get into 70, you're playing a lot of hockey as a goalie. He had 32 wins, 6 shutouts, and he was an all-star as well. They also had Ken Lockett, who had 6 wins and 2 shutouts of his own. So, he put up some okay numbers for a guy that, didn't play anywhere near what Gary Smith did. And I'm glad the Canucks are finally into the playoffs. So, in second, it's the St. Louis Blues. They had 35 wins and 84 points. Gary Younger led the squad with 36 goals and 80 points. He also was an all-star for the Blues in this season. Now, in net for the Blues, they had 3 different guys. They had 21-year-old John Davidson. He had 17 wins. 39-year-old ex-Leaf Eddie Johnston. He had 12 wins. And 22-year-old Yves Belanger, who had 6 wins as well. In third was the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm not going to say they're stumbling here, but they they've dropped down a bit. They had 37 wins and 82 points, but Stan Mikita and Jimmy Pappin were still showing the way at Chicago Stadium. They both had 36 goals, and both of them were All Stars as well. Mikita led the team with his 86 points. In net, the number one guy was Tony Esposito. He played 71 games and he had 34 wins, a 906 save percentage, a 2.75 goals against, and he had six shutouts. So well done there for Tony. Now out of the playoffs, in fourth place was the Minnesota North Stars. They had 23 wins and 53 points, well back of Chicago. Things have turned bad in Minnesota here. As their goal differential, it was bad. It was minus 120. That's terrible. Bill Goldsworthy was their lone 20 goal scorer, and he had 37. Dennis Hextall led the club with his 74 points. They had three goalies in their net. First, they had 36-year-old Cesar Maniego. He had 11 wins. 21-year-old rookie Pete Lopresti. He had 9 wins. And they also had Fern Rivard, who had 3 wins for Minnesota. Now, in last place, shouldn't be too shocking. It's the new club. It's the Kansas City Scouts, which is totally okay. You got a team, you iced them, okay. It's now time to make some improvements, right? They grabbed only 15 wins and had 41 points. The future is up, right? Yeah, this was your first year, so just let's work on improving here. Simone Nollet and rookie Will Paymon were their 20 goal scorers. They had two of them, and they both potted 26. Nollet led the team with 58 points, and he was an all-star for the Scouts as well. In net for the Scouts, they had three goalies. We had Peter McDuff, he had 7 wins. Michel Plaze had 4 wins, and Denny Aaron had 4 wins as well. The Scouts had an even worse goal differential than the North Stars. They were a minus 144. Now, as a first year team, look at that number, understand that it is brutal, and work on it. Work towards improving that. Obviously, they had only two 20 goal scorers, so let's work on the offense. But certainly, just as big of a problem is the defense. I didn't look on shots against. I'm sure they weren't very good in that category. So it's you got to work on both sides of the ice here in this case. So now we're going to jump over to the Adams division, where the Leafs are living at the current time. Now, in first place, they had a heck of a season, was the Buffalo Sabres, who really put a great season together. They got 49 wins and 113 points. All Stars Rick Martin, he had 52 goals, and Rene Robert, he had 100 points to lead the team. Martin also had 21 power play goals. In net for Buffalo, they had Gary Bromley, who had 26 wins and 4 shutouts, as well as Roger Crozier was still there. He had 17 wins, a 904 save percentage, 2.62 goals against, and he had 3 shutouts of his own. And the coach in Buffalo at this time was Floyd Smith, ex-Leaf, and he later would go on to coach the Leafs in about 5 years or so. So he was coaching in Buffalo. Now their goal differential was terrific. They were a plus 114. They had that many more goals than they had against them. They could score and keep the puck out of their net. They had the French connection, so you had Martin Robert and Gilbert Perreault playing center. That was their top line. It was a great line, and they could definitely put the puck in the net, no doubt about it. No, in second place was the Boston Bruins, and they still had a strong team. Don Cherry was behind their bench in Boston. They had 40 wins, which was great, and 94 points. Phil Esposito had 61 goals to lead the league. He also had 27 power play goals, also to lead the league in that category. And of course, he was an all-star. Bobby Orr, still in Boston, he had 46 goals. He's a defenseman. but he led the league with 89 assists and 135 points. He was a plus 80. He also had 384 shots, and yeah, guess what? He was an all-star, no doubt about it. He went on to win the Art Ross, Lester B. Pearson, and the Norris in this particular season. Now, and that for the Bruins, this is a little confusing. I'm not sure as to exactly why this happened, but they had a few different goalies. Of course, we have Gilles Gilbert. He was there the previous season. He had 23 wins in this year. He had three shutouts as well. But they had two other goalies. So we have Ross Brooks. He had 10 wins and a 2.98 goals against average. And there was also a Ken Broderick who had 7 wins, a 904 save percentage, and an even better 2.39 goals against. Now, I'm not sure if they were just sharing time in there, these two guys, to see who could take off and be the backup, or was there an injury back there, or was there even a trade? I didn't look into this to see why. I don't think that either of these guys played on another team this particular year, but they had three guys playing in Boston, which was certainly not unheard of at this time. A lot of teams went with the three goalie system, as I've covered some teams that have done that as well. Now, Boston had a terrific goal differential as well. It was plus 100. They had more goals than goals against. They had Hall of Famers putting the puck in the net, for example, Esposito and Orr, and they seemed to have good quality goaltending. Gilles Gilbert, he's a good goalie. And yeah, so there you have it. In third, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They always seem to be in the top division, eh? Well, that's the way it goes. They had 31 wins and 78 points. I'm going to talk about them more once I cover all of the other teams here. And in last place, on the outside, once again, it's the California Golden Seals. They had just 19 wins, but they did have 13 ties, so they were able to pick up 51 points, but that's well back of Toronto. It wasn't a close race, and they're out of the playoffs. Um, so leading the team in goals was Dave Ricosi, I think is how you say his name. He played well before I watched. 29 goals for the Golden Seals. You had Larry Patty. He was the other 20 goal guy. He had 25, as well as Stan Weir. He would later play in Toronto. They led the team with only 45 points. The two of them had. But when I look at the team and look at the ages, they're quite young up front. They're a young squad, which is okay. It means they're building. Um, they are finally going with youth here in California. Maybe they did the previous season, but I remember the first year they were putting in a lot of veterans in there, like Bobby Bond, for example, um, or Kent Douglas. But now they look like they're going with youth here at this point. In that, it seemed to be a bit of a strength with them, if you will, in comparison to who's playing out in front of them. Gilles Meloche was still there. He had 9 wins. And Gary Simmons was the other goalie. He had 10 wins for the Golden Seals. The differential was not very good. It was minus 104. And looking at it defensively, they were 14th in the league. That's the bottom half. Offensively, they were 16th, even worse. So, yep, you got to work on both things here, guys, in California. See what you can do. Work on it. Just keep going with this plan, with this youth movement here. I know some of these guys are good players. Just hopefully you can stay with it and maybe stick some other players there with them too that will work along with them. So finally, we're going to look at the Norris division. And on top of this division, no surprise, it's the Montreal Canadiens. They were kicking it. They had 47 wins and 113 points. Guy Lafleur was coming into his own now. He had 53 goals, 66 assists, and he led the club with 119 points. He also had 11 game winners. And yes, of course, he was an all star. Pete Mahovlich, I never knew he put up these kind of points. Old Habs fans, they'll probably remember this, but Mahovlich had 82 assists this particular year, and he had 117 points. Well done there, Pete. In net, they got him back. Kenny Dryden is back in Montreal, and he pulled in 30 wins, had a 906 save percentage, 2.70 goals against, and 4 shutouts. The other goalie they had was Bonnie Larocque. He had 17 wins and 3 shutouts. Later, he'd be playing in Toronto as well. So in second, making big improvements this year was the LA Kings. Bob Pulford was behind the bench, former Leaf. He was and King. He played there, but now he's behind the bench in LA. They won 42 and pulled in 105 points. Bob Nevin had 31 goals and 72 points for the Kings. In net, they had a couple of guys. They had Rogie Vachon. He had 27 wins, and he led the league with a very nice 927 save percentage. Very good. And 2.24 goals against, and he had 6 shutouts. They also had Gary Edwards, who had 15 wins. He also had a very nice 916 save percentage, 2.35 goals against, and he had 3 shutouts of his own. They seem to be very good defensively. They were second in the league only to the Philadelphia Flyers, who happen to have a Bernie Perron in their net. They were second in the league in goals against, which to me is not much of a surprise. I mean, he was never my coach. I don't know the ins and outs, but you got Bobby Pulford behind the bench. He was a great penalty killer, defensive minded, probably because of Punch Imlach in Toronto, but that's what he was known for as a player. So it shouldn't be a surprise he can put out a team that can play good defense as well. In third, it was the Pittsburgh Penguins. They were making some improvements as well. They had 37 wins and 86 points. Uh, Incredibly, they had 10, yes, 10 different 20 goal scorers. So the scoring was spread very well on this club. It was all-star Jean Provono. He led the club. He had 43 goals, while captain Ron Schock led the team with 86 points. And that another team with a few different options. They had Gary Innes, who had 24 wins, but my guess is he was peppered with a lot of shots. Pittsburgh's defense wasn't so great, so they probably played a very wide open style. Because Innes had a nice 905 save percentage, nothing to sneeze at there, but he had a 3.10 goals against average. He had 2 shutouts as well. They also had Michel Place. He had 9 wins. What happened is they worked out a deal Pittsburgh did with the Kansas City Scouts. Um, and Pittsburgh sent Denny Aaron to Kansas City, and they sent Place to Pittsburgh as well. They had Bob Johnson. He had 3 wins. But his numbers were not very good. I see he had a 853 save percentage and a 5.03 goals against. He certainly played less time than the other goalies, but his numbers weren't up to snuff, if you will. So maybe that's why Pittsburgh worked out this trade and got Plaze in Pittsburgh. So missing the playoffs were the Detroit Red Wings. They had 23 wins and 58 points. Danny Grant, he scored 50 goals for the Red Wings this season. Um, and their captain, Marcel Dion, he's still in Detroit. Uh, the time, unfortunately, Dion in Detroit, he wasn't there long, but they didn't. They did they make the playoffs once? I'm guessing here, but he played tremendous. He had 47 goals, 74 assists, and 121 points. Dion also had an incredible 10 shorthanded goals this season. For a career, that's worth mentioning. He did this in one season, 10 shorthanded goals. Dion also won the Lady Byng, and he was, of course, an all-star this season as well. And that for the Red Wings. Jimmy Rutherford was the #1 man in Detroit. He had 20 wins for the Wings. And in last place, we need to talk about this. It's the lowly Washington Capitals. It can be said this was their first year, but man, was it ever brutal. This may be thought of as the worst team of all time in the NHL. Why, you ask? They had only 8 wins, and at the end of the season had 21 points. Some teams get that in a month. Like, I'm not joking here. They got that in an entire season. Tommy Williams led the club with 22 goals and 58 points. In net, Ron Lowe, formerly, um, he actually had all the wins for the Caps. He had all 8. And the other goalie they used as well, it wasn't just Lowe in there. They had Michel Delumer. He played 35 games. Um, I feel sorry for him. He didn't even get a win. He got 3 ties um, for the Capitals. I'm going to say their goaltenders were likely hung out to dry. They were worst in goals for. They only had 181. That is 2.26 goals a game. That's not going to cut it in the NHL at any time. And their goals against was last by a long margin. They let in 446. And you heard that right. 446. Or their team goals against in a game, they would let in 5.58 goals. So they would score 2.25 and let in 5.5. I don't know. Like they're lucky they won 8 games with that, with those kind of numbers. That gives us a goal differential of minus 265. That is beyond brutal, and my thoughts are this team is years away from icing a decent team that can look towards maybe making a push the following season. They're years from that. Of course, drafts can help immensely, but guess what? Like Wayne Gretzky ain't available next year. Guy Lafleur isn't available next year. Um, what are they going to do? The Capitals are way worse than the Scouts here, and they only had what was it, 46 points, 41 points, whatever. They're way worse than them. So it's going to be a long road here for Washington, I think, um, before they get to the playoffs. Now, looking further look into the Leafs in 1974-75, Daryl Sittler led the team with his 36 goals, 44 assists, and 80 points. He also led the team with his 12 power play goals, and he was an all-star. Tiger Williams, in his rookie season, he led the team in his penalty minutes. He only played 42 games, but he did rack up 187 pins. Bill Flett, he led the team with 3 shorthanded goals. And George Ferguson and Ronnie Ellis led the squad. They both had 5 game winners. Um, in net, they had a three-headed monster in Toronto. They had Doug Favell. He had 12 wins. Gordon McRae, 10 wins. And Doug Wilson, he had 8 wins. Of the three, looking at the numbers, it looks like McRae put up the best numbers. He had an 891 save percentage and a 3.22 goals against. I think Favell's goals against was like 4.01. Um, so he wasn't playing quite as well as he was the previous season. Now, if, the Leafs had a goal differential of minus 29, which is a lot, seeming their record was 31 wins and 33 losses. Um, Tells me at times they could have problems in their net or defensively, or when they lose, they could lose big. So there you have it. So I'm going to show you my team now, and we'll talk about that. So there's some similar guys here and some guys that are different. So who do we got here? We got Sittler, Ellis, Keenan. We got Salmon, McKinney, Alexander. They're on the Leafs. Well, we got some new guys here. We got Bobby Bourne. We got Clark Gillies. We got Danny Gare. Pretty good. Now, as I see Turnbull, he only played 22 games. I think he got hurt this season. But generally, down low, those extra guys there are rookies. Bednarski, he was a free agent, so I'll just snap him up. I need some games on defense there. So there you have it. And in that, we got Bernie Pront. He's still in Toronto. And I got Gordon McRae. He's going to be the backup now in Toronto, playing with Bernie. And I think with that squad, like they five, six, seven guys scoring 20 goals. That's good. Um, f- four of them with 30. That's good. Um, I'm not gonna take first place. I'll give that to Buffalo, but we're gonna end up in second. We're gonna end up above Boston with that squad, I think. And looking into it, that we're gonna go on a playoff run here. We got Bernie Perron. He won the Conn Smythe as the MVP of the playoffs, and hopefully we can get into the Stanley Cup final. I think looking at it here, um, we may play uh, Buffalo in the semifinals. That'd be a tremendous series, and then maybe even the Montreal Canadiens in the finals if we can get past Buffalo. Philadelphia won the cup this year, but without Bernie in net, they're going to have Doug Favell. He wasn't so great this year. They're going to still end up in first. I think the Islanders are not going to make the playoffs. I got some of their players here. So maybe the Atlanta Flames make it. But I'm going to just quickly talk about some trades I'll do on my team. I'm going to send a line over to the Vancouver Canucks. I'm going to send them, and this is going to be a bad trade to some people, but Normie Allman, Rick Middleton, Blaine Stoughton, send them to Vancouver. I'll get Ron Settlebauer. He's going to be a rookie this year. And then their first rounder and third rounder of 1975, the following draft. Get that off of Vancouver. I'm going to send to Minnesota the North Stars, Mike Visor, Tim Ecclestone, and Brian Glennie on defense. Good hitter. Send them to Minnesota. I'll get their third, fourth, and fifth draft picks of the following draft next year. St. Louis, I'll send them a couple Wilsons. I'll send them Bert and Rick Wilson, as well as Dean Telefus, and I'll get their fourth and fifth rounders of 1975 and their fourth rounder of 1976. Let's go with that. And to Pittsburgh, I'll send Mike Corney and John Grisdale on defense, and I'll get their fourth and fifth rounders of the following draft. So I'm loading up on draft picks here. They're kind of in the middle of the draft, but there you have it. So that's the 1974-75 season. They're also playing 80 games this year, so they're playing a full 80 this upcoming season, and we'll see how it goes here. But I hope you once again are enjoying the playoffs in the NHL. I know I am. Just to let you know, I'm actually running a hockey pool with some family, people I work with, friends, running this pool. I'm doing it with a big help from my cousin Bob. I'm in last place, absolute last place. So yeah, it's early though, right? But Andrew, a guy I worked with, he said, "Well, at least I know the pool isn't fixed." So I thought that was pretty funny. So, but anyways, enjoy your hockey, and until next time, go Leafs, go!